We have apologies from Avaninda Kaur, Jane Burrows, Michael Cowland, Emma Basden-Smith, Councillor Kerr, Peter Husband. That are all of them?
That's it. Thank you, Phil. Thank you.
Okay. And I'd like to welcome Ian Green, who's the head teacher from Rugby Free Secondary School, who's observing our meeting today.
Afternoon. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay. Right. If you're not speaking, can I ask you all to turn your mics off so we can keep the feedback down, please? Right, item 2 is voting on actions from the last meeting, which have been circulated along with the papers. Are there any issues anyone wants to raise from them?
Just one update on one of the actions from me, Phil.
Okay.
So item 4 on the national funding formula, there was an action for me to go back and speak to the DfE around the shortfall in funding against the hard national funding formula. I did have a meeting with the DfE and a number of other local authorities across the East and West Midlands, and it was flagged that we are not alone in having a shortfall or a affordability gap, as it's been put, between the hard national funding formula and just the funding formula. In fact, say out of I think the 15 councils there, 12 of us had an affordability issue on the national funding formula this year. So I just wanted to feed that back.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Steph. And Pop, State of the Nation, I think that is, isn't it? Thank you for that. All right, we'll move on to item 3, which is the update from the Director of Education. Johnny, please.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. Nice to see you all. In terms of updates from myself, I've now completed over a year in Warwickshire, so great to still be here. And in that time, it's been a real privilege to go around and develop relationships and work with people and meet lots of people and get to know the county. We've been really busy in that time, trying to address issues that are prevalent to all of us in the county as a sector. So in terms of updates with regards to what affects all of us as schools and where we're looking to spend our money and invest, if you like, in terms of the key areas, just a few brief items from me. So we were successful in our application for the Deliver and Better Value programme with the DfE, which means that they will release, I think it's £1 million of funding for us to spend on key initiatives and strategies to look at trying to create a more sustainable high needs block expenditure going forward. And that is supporting 4 different strategic strands that we are looking at. So one of those is a focus on digital, using digital software for things like EHC plans and making that process more streamlined and more effective. Focusing on the inclusion charter, which schools have adopted in terms of how we approach inclusion as a whole with schools. Looking at workforce development and how
I
think someone's got their mic on.
Perfect. Who have I missed?
Have you got any time just to go through my
question? I can do it while I'm doing this.
Siobhan. There we go. Thanks, Siobhan. Focusing on workforce development, so developing, staff in schools and our approach to, supporting inclusion in that way. And probably the biggest element of our strategic approach is the development of specialist resource provision in mainstream schools so that we can support young people with SEND more in mainstream schools, but to give schools the resources and the capacity to do so. So that's quite a major development there. So we'll be sharing that throughout the year with, strategic partnership boards and here. And so that's really good news, and that's really positive for us as a sector, as a county, and I think we'll all want to get behind that. To obviously we want to manage sustainable funds in terms of how we spend, but actually at the heart of it is what's best for the young people, and that's the driving factor. That's the number one factor before anything else. The second element in terms of where we're looking at spend that is funded out of high needs block money is around alternative provision. So unfortunately, for one reason or another, we've seen a significant increase in exclusions across the county. We're not an outlier in Warwickshire. It seems to be happening nationwide, but perhaps more concerningly that the age of young people being excluded permanently is getting younger and younger. And we're seeing a significant rise, a spike in that, to the point where we are now a little bit short in our provision, in effective provision for our young people. We don't have an alternative provision school in the county. We rely on providers who are not able to take young people on necessarily full-time and are limited in how they can approach it. Of the providers we have, a number of them are unregistered with Ofsted, which is allowed, but nonetheless probably isn't something that we should rely and depend on. So over the last 3 or 4 months, we've started to develop an alternative provision strategy, which involves looking at working with schools, again, similar to the resource provision, to look at where schools could potentially host alternative provision within their schools, that we could develop that within there. We are going to work with Talent on Academy that is due to open in 2025, but that's secondary provision. So that will become a school, if you like, an AP school to support secondary young people there. We need to look at something similar for primary level as well. We're exploring different models, like looking at how we can support preventative models as well. So we don't want to revert to statutory processes where the LA is responsible for 6-day provision and then simply trying to place children back into school. Because at the tail end of that, as you know, fair access protocol is the mechanism with which to place young people back into school. But we want to make sure that those being placed back there are ready to be placed and are able to succeed when they get there. So everything I've just outlined for you, schools through our Education Partnership Board that meets every month and that has representation from all schools in the county, all schools are involved in this strategically. So everybody is going to have a say or be able to contribute in what our approach is for this, so that we can maximise the resources that we've got, so that we can work together and ensure that we're having, efficient use of resources, if you like. So I'm really pleased about that. And so that's a summary of what we're spending, what we're spending that money on. It is all going back into schools, and it's all going back to support young people. Last but not least, there's a paper later on today about admissions. Again, that affects all schools, and you'll see from the paper there's been a significant rise in the number of schools and the number of young people and the number of appeals and the number of things we need to process. So, that will be made clear later in the paper. So that's the update from me, Phil. Happy to take any questions if anyone wants them. But like I say, I think for me it's very exciting times, because I think I'm seeing people work together. I've seen so many school leaders come forward, CEOs as well of multi-academy trusts, to try and see how we can work together for the good of all our young people. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Johnny. Are there any questions from forum members for Johnny on that report, which has got quite a few things in there, quite a few good initiatives, quite a few things for us to think about there? Thank you. Any questions, please? You've answered everybody's questions, Johnny. Well done.
Fabulous.
Sure,
I'll take that. Thanks, Phil.
I'm sure there'll be more discussions over the months to come. Thank you very much. Okay, all right. So we've got 4 matters for decision today. So we'll take those in the order they are in the agenda. So the first one, item 4, is the 2024-5 DSG budget. So Stephanie, please.
Hope you can all see the paper I've just put up.
Yeah.
So Dedicated schools grant budget for 24-25. We're recommending Schools Forum to note the budget for the schools block, high needs block and early years block, and to approve the central school services block for next year. The introduction sets out the DSG grant and how that's increased from last year to this year. So you can see about a 7% increase in schools block, 3% in high needs block, quite a large increase in the early years block due to the increase in the entitlements for this year, and a very, very minor increase in the central school services block, which is quite lucky really this year. So the schools block has increased by 7.2% above last year, and this is represented by an increase of 1.4% in the pupil numbers on roll, around a 4% increase in primary and secondary, and varying degrees of increases between, let's say 0.2% and 13.87% in all the different per pupil led funding levels. We've set the minimum funding guarantee at 0.5% in line with the hard NFF as agreed by Schools Forum in previous years. Following Schools Forum decision, we have de-delegated the following, as you can see, as was agreed, and following application to the Secretary of State, the 0.5% transfer from the schools block to the high needs block was approved, and that has been referenced and referred to in the paper. So table 3 shows the breakdown of the schools block funding for next year, including the contribution to the high needs block, as you can see at the bottom there. So the high needs block has been set to budget this year based on the DBVs, the Delivering Better Value programme. So we've tried very hard this year to set the budget in line with that, so that any papers that come next year and any figures that's shown to you next year will be in direct comparison to what we're trying to achieve through the DBV. It does show, therefore, that there is a £17.9 million deficit at the beginning of the year as per the DVV. The early years block then has been set as per the allocations, as per the increased entitlements. I've included on the table this year all the different elements about what is passported and what is retained for early years providers, so they can see exactly which of those budgets are made up of that 5% retention this year. And the central school services block, which is what we're asking for approval for then, is set out in section 5. I say this has gone up in elements for the ongoing functions this year, and we've been very lucky in getting approval to protect the historic commitments of the £1 million this year as well as last year. We've increased the schools admission service this year due to numerous factors, and we've kept a small amount of contingency back as well to help look and confirm once the copyright licenses costs come in, because they haven't been confirmed by the central government yet, and also details around the admission services and a few other areas. Are there any questions about any of that actually?
Any questions, please? There's been a lot of discussion in the media about issues around the provision of the new early years provision that's being expanded. Are there any particular issues in any areas of Warwickshire in provision and people not being able to get places?
Have to refer to my colleagues in the service on this one. Johnny, okay. Do you know of anything? So Matt hasn't specifically mentioned anything to me at the moment yet.
Rose, did you want to comment?
Yes, I'm not sure if I'm going to word this right, so I'm going to try my best. So I know from a school point of view, we set our budget for next year, and then in recent weeks we've had a change. and there was some sort of delay, something, a change information hadn't come through in time, or there was delay from in Warwickshire. I don't know if that's come from the DFE. Can anyone sort of shed some light on that, why that happened?
Are you talking about the 2-year-old funding? Is that what you're?
No. I wasn't sure if the changes were in relation to the fact that the additional money was being taken to the high needs block, but I know it's impacted on our school and other schools from the point of view of we'd already set our budget, and now it then impacted that we had to relook at it because we were receiving less, because more was being taken out, and therefore everything we planned to do we had to revisit. And I understood it was something to do that some figures hadn't come through, and therefore that's why there'd been some changes. That's what the finance officers were telling us.
Okay.
I'll have to come back to you on that one, Rose, because as far as I'm aware, we've only sent out one budget to all schools this year, which was sent out in February. There hasn't been any revisions sent.
Okay.
Right,
So
Miriam.
We definitely had more taken off of us, and we were told to relook at it. And I just wondered if that was other schools as well, because that wasn't helpful, because we've had to do the work twice.
the only thing I can think of is that you might have been given advice on changing your budget since the estimates were sent out before Christmas, because they have obviously changed since the estimates that were sent out in the autumn term.
No, it's in relation to since the February ones. Yeah, maybe it's just me. Okay.
I wasn't aware of any, and it's my team that sends them out, so that's slightly concerning.
Steph, can I?
What school is it, Rose?
Arden Forest.
Arden Forest. I will look into it and get back to you.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of people want to come in, and I'll bring you in a minute, Brian, if that's all right.
It's to Steph's point, actually.
Okay.
I was just going to ask Steph, did we get the all clear from the DFE when we sent in the APT the first time? Yeah.
Yes.
So
we didn't send the budgets out until we had the all clear, and nothing's changed to school
Okay.
budgets that I'm aware of since then. So
okay, it must be something internally.
Okay, Mary-Ann Burrows, please.
Yeah, it was just really to answer your question regarding the sufficiency for the new funding. I don't actually know whether there's sufficiency across the whole county. I do know that there's some capital grants up for grabs, and that the local authority are going to look at the areas that require more sufficiency than others in order to allocate those. I don't know if that helps anybody, but that's what we've heard. So.
Okay, thank you. Rebecca Harrison.
Hi, I was just coming back to the lady from Arden. We had the same conversation with our finance officer, who said that the funding formulas had all changed, but she didn't quite know why. I said, I wonder if it is to do with the 0.5% top slice. She didn't know anything about the 0.5% top slice. That came as a shock to her. But I also wondered if it was linked to when the government made their errors when they were doing their calculations for the 24-25 budget as well. So I didn't know if all those things were linked as to why your numbers suddenly appeared worse. That's what I've assumed it is.
And I think that's what I assumed too. I just didn't word it very well. And I think it's just that feedback from our point of view of I've had to do the same job twice in response, which isn't always easy, but it's busy. Yeah.
But I'm assuming it's also because everybody found it a shock that the reply came back so quickly with a yes, you can take the 0.5. But keeping on that point, I seem to recall when we were having to make that decision to do the disapplication, that the government were kind of holding you over a barrel. If we said no, you wouldn't get any figures through. I just wondered if anything's been said about that to anyone to say, that's not quite fair to hold us to ransom to do those things. And I also wondered, Stephanie, you said before, we're not the only school, only authority to be short funded for the hard national formula. There were like 12 others, but what's actually happening? Yes, we're not the only one, but what?
There's a comment about disapplication and the applying to other authorities. Was it Steph? You were going to come in on that. Somebody said at the pre-meeting yesterday about every local authority who applied for disapplication got it, and there's a range of disapplication requests from 0.5% to 1.5%. So it's what Warwickshire applied for, that need. A lot of our local authorities are doing too. I think that was the comment, wasn't it?
Yes, Phil. I think from top of my memory, it's about 16 local authorities applied for the disapplication, and 16 of them got it. It was a total in excess of 60 million was moved from school blocks to high needs blocks overall. The largest amount was, I think, was 9 million. That was Kent, I think, and the highest percentage was 1.5%.
Yeah, thanks for that, Brian. Panima, I know you've been waiting for a while, so I'm going to bring you in now.
Thanks, Phil. It was only to say to Rose and to Rachel, I'll pick that up. The two schools that you have referenced, where there looks like there was some confusion over the funding and you had to rework your figures, leave that with me, and we will see what we can find out as to the reasons for that.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Okay, right. Are there any comments or questions on further comments or questions on this report for Stephanie, please?
So the only one was responding to Mary's last comment there around the shortfall in funding. The DfE response was that they'd take it away and look at it for when we have to go officially to the national funding formula across the board, but it wasn't one of their priorities really at the moment. It wasn't very a helpful response.
Okay, all right. Thanks for that. Mary Ambrose, you've still got your hand up. Was that for another comment?
No, sorry, it's down now.
Right, okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much for that. If there aren't any further questions, then we'll move on to item 5, which is
we just need to do the voting on that one.
Oh, we do. I thank you for that. Right, so we note the budget, and we need to vote to approve item 2, the CSSB budget of the DSG. And we've got some whizzy tech where we can do it on our screen. So I encourage everybody to. I hope everyone's got the box up on their screen, and you can now vote. Please do.
Can I just check, is this all members or maintained, or all members?
All
This
members,
is all members.
not including the observer, please.
Can I just ask, can all members see a form on their screen with 3 options in front of them?
Yes.
No, I can't.
Is that why you voted with your hand, Sybil?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. So we'll make a note of those people who have got their hands up. So it obviously isn't quite working for everybody. Okay.
Right, so we've got 10 responses on the auto vote, and we've got 4 other positive ones. They've got their hands up, yeah? Okay.
Yes.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for that. Okay, so that's approved. Right. Now I'll move on to item 5, Schools Forum membership. Panima, please.
So hopefully I have successfully shared my screen so everyone can see the report. Yep, okay, lovely. So Schools Forum membership. The term of office for current Schools Forum representatives is actually due to come to end at March 2024. Membership was for 2 years starting in 2022. We do have a number of vacant posts currently, and although we have tried to fill those posts, we haven't had a huge response on those. So the proposal that we are making, but it has to be with the agreement of all of you here today, obviously, is that we extend your current term for 1 more year to either the later of March March 2025, or actually the conclusion of the elections process, which would be around that time, most probably ending around May, June 2025. What that would do, it would retain current members' really valued experience for one more year, and it would also allow us to do some work in terms of promoting the role of Schools Forum. And we've talked to Johnny and Ross, who obviously have channels that they can utilise to do so. Section 1.2 essentially just gives the sort of guidance on the required structure of Schools Forum, so I don't propose necessarily to go through that in detail. And the tables in section 2 essentially give you an understanding of how we try to ensure the right makeup of Schools Forum. So we do that based on the relevant census data in order to try and make sure that each sector is appropriately represented. And then we also have a requirement to have a non-schools membership, which is shown in section 3.1 of this report. If for whatever reason current members would rather not retain their seat and prefer to have an election this year, we can go ahead and do that. I suppose my nervousness is whether we would actually get sufficient people signing up at this present time without having done that sort of marketing that we would like to do over the course of the next year. So although this isn't necessarily a vote as such, what I am asking is whether you would be agreeable as current Schools Forum representatives, including the chair and vice chair, to extend your term to 3 years. By way of benchmarking, we did look at other local authorities, and it does look like the average term tends to be 3 years at other local authorities. At some, they even extend that to 4. So I just wanted to provide that by way of a little bit of context. So I suppose happy to have a discussion about it. And Ross and Johnny, if you wanted to come in, because I know, Ross, you've got some great ideas about how we can promote Schools Forum and get further interest. So if you wanted to come in and share that, that'd be brilliant.
You've lined me up there, Penny. I think
you've been teed up well, Ross. Do you want to take the floor?
Thank you. So for those who don't know, Ross Course Head of Send and Inclusion, obviously worked with Johnny as Director of Education as well. And I think we've had the discussion internally. We haven't got any firm proposals, but we know that we've reconstituted our Warwickshire Education Partnership Board in terms of how that works, which works well with our consortia leads and the chairs of our secondary area groups. And I think we just want to kind of take forward a discussion in terms of the structures that we're setting up to engage on a whole range of education issues, and I kind of align that to Schools Forum as well. So it feels like one thing we've got working really well through that Education Partnership Board that we think is we know that all of those who attend take the information back, they share it, the minutes of the meeting are shared and cascaded through all the groups. And we were just thinking in terms of Schools Forum, we need something similar really. So we don't have firm proposals yet. I think that's something to discuss over the next few months, and hence we think extending this by at least 1 year for the current membership would make sense as we kind of gather some thoughts on how that might work in the future.
Thanks, Ross. Yeah, I mean, I say just to support what Panima said a few minutes ago, I've always thought that 2 years was very short because there's quite a lot to get to grips with here in terms of what goes on and in terms of the way that schools are funded and what we can do and what we can't do. And you just get, if you're on a 2-year term, you just get to know that, and then you've got to decide whether you want to carry on again. So I've always felt 2 years is too short. It seems that 3 years isn't out of line with a lot of other local authorities. And given that we've got a number of vacancies at the moment, if anyone has a real burning desire to come on Schools Forum, I'm sure we can find a place for them without having an election. It's going to take some potential officer time to run an election if we need to do that. So I think it's something that we don't need to do at this moment. And let's take another year to think about how we get some more people on. I appreciate what Ross is saying, and we'll certainly work with that. I mean, it's not as if we haven't been doing anything to try and encourage more people to join. I think it's gone out through. We certainly put something on Heads Up. It's gone out through all the normal channels, through the clerks, out to people's governors' meetings, out also to governor training. So we've tried some channels already. We just need to keep trying. So, Nikki.
Yeah, just a second that really. And I think the Warwickshire Partnership Board meeting now is in such a different place to last year. And I think that'll be a really good forum to share what school forum is, what the role would be, and also to invite people to participate, just like Ian is today. I think that's a really good model.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Right,
So I suppose what I'm looking for is that maybe we can do it by exception. Is there anybody here that is not happy with the proposal to continue with their term?
Any dissent? Anybody who's got a burning desire to be re-elected this year? Okay, we'll take that silence as acceptance, and we'll go ahead with that proposal. Thank you, Panima.
Thank you.
Right, item 6 then. There have been some minor changes to the scheme for financing schools. So we've got something that we want to bring to your attention. Panima, please.
Thank you. So it's an annual report every year, pretty much every year. The DFE issue guidance, which they post on their internet pages, about any revisions to their blueprint for the scheme for the financing of schools. So this report relates to maintained schools, to which this scheme is relevant for. We are then, as a local authority, required to publish our own scheme, and our scheme pretty much mirrors that of the DFE. So I keep a close eye on any changes to make sure that I update our scheme accordingly. There's only been one change that has been issued. It was actually issued at the end of last financial year, 31st of March 2023, and it's amendment to the paragraph relating to the income from the sale of assets. It's actually so that paragraph has always been in the scheme. They've really just tidied up the language, I would say. And what I have done is in the actual document itself, the scheme for the financing of school, which is attached as an appendix to all of your papers, I've updated that, but I've put it in purple for your reference. We've also updated Annex A and Annex B, Annex A being our list of maintained schools, to make sure that that is up to date, and Annex B being a link to our Treasury management strategy. So really, I'm asking you to note, so I'm asking you to approve the consultation that we'll need to do for the scheme of financing of schools, but also I'm asking you to note that I'd like to change the timescale with which I tend to do this scheme, just to align it better to when the government update their blueprint. And as they do that at the 31st of March every year, it makes more sense for me to bring this paper to the June meeting each year so that we are better aligned. That's it really, Phil. So I'm just asked to approve the timetable, which actually, yes, there it is. It's in 1.4. So if people could please vote if you're in favour of the timetable of the consultation, which will be between Monday the 25th of March and Tuesday the 7th of May. Seems like a long time, but that's to allow for school holidays really and the bank holiday.
Yeah, I mean, just before everyone votes, has anyone got any comments on that? Anybody got any problems? No? All right. If you'd like to cast your vote then, please. Right. Everyone who's voted electronically. We've got 9 responses in favour. Right. Okay. And there's some other people who wish to put their hands up. I haven't got any of those this time.
There were a couple went up.
Okay, all right. Yeah, Mary Ann Burrows, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, okay, thank you. And Sybil, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, item 7 is a verbal report about future meetings. So, as you know, we currently hold all our most of our meetings on Teams, which has the advantage of us it gets us a decent turnout normally, but we have said that we'd like to have one meeting face to face each year so that we can remember what we all look like. We have done that. We did that in June last year. And Panema, I think you've got another proposal, haven't you?
Yeah, so I suppose the options that we were thinking of was to continue with having the June meeting as a face-to-face meeting. So that would be the next meeting of this year. That's one option. Having looked at the forward plan for next month's meeting, there are a couple of items on there, but it's not the meatiest of agendas. But if Schools Forum would still like to go ahead with that being a face-to-face, we can absolutely make that happen. The other alternative to think about is we wondered if it would be better if the November meeting were a face-to-face meeting. The November meeting is we call it an extraordinary meeting, but in fairness, we have now held that meeting for the last 3 or 4 years consecutively, and we need to build it into the timetable. But it is obviously the meeting where the 0.5% is discussed as a proposal, and it's a really important and healthy debate. And I just thought, actually, as a meeting, it's probably the best one to have face to face, to have those honest, robust conversations and discussions in an open forum. So I suppose I just wanted to have a discussion. Really would like to hear people's views as to what they think about either a June meeting face to face, a November meeting face to face, or perhaps both of them face to face, or none at all. Just wanted to put all of those options on the table.
Thank you. I mean, certainly in terms of the disapplication discussion, it's probably, apart from when we're getting really stuck into the high needs block and send, it's probably the item that generates most discussion in our meetings, isn't it? Fair to say. So I think it would benefit from having a face-to-face meeting, and we can throw buns at each other. So any comments up on that, please? Right, Rebecca Harrison.
I'm quite happy with the face-to-face ones. It's like I don't mind doing the things on Teams, but I struggle finding a space. So currently I'm in the office and lots of people walking in and out, and I don't think I give as much focus and engagement on the Teams meetings as I do in a face-to-face. So I'm pro face-to-face, but it's also I'm 10 minutes down the road, so it's easy for me. So I can't really complain, can I?
Yeah, I think that's the other side of the coin. Warwickshire is quite a large county, and we did find even pre-pandemic that when we held the face-to-face meetings, we really struggled to get a quorum sometimes, because people have got to take, instead of taking an hour out to come to this meeting on the screen, you've got to take an hour and a half out to come to the meeting, plus an hour's travel at each end, and plus a parking struggle. So yeah, I think that does act as a disincentive. I'm very much in favour of face-to-face meetings because you do get more engagement, but I'm happy to go forward with what we're doing now, and have that one-to-one, that face-to-face meeting each year, as I said. So we can just have a bit of networking, and we can have a good discussion face-to-face. So yeah, any other comments? Right, in the absence of any other comments, then I'm going to propose that we do have a face-to-face meeting. We have it in November. All right. So can we tee up the auto voting for that, or do I ask for a show of hands?
Let's do it the old-fashioned way. Show of hands.
Right. Okay. So if you're in favour of my verbal proposal, then can you indicate? Yeah, I think that's received quite well approval. Are there anybody seriously objecting to that? Okay. All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead with that. If you'd like to get that sorted. Are we looking for a host again, or are we going back to the same venue?
We'll start off looking for a venue within Warwick Town Centre, one of the council settings if we can, and if we can't, we'll certainly come out and have a word with Schools Forum members and see what's available. Thanks, Bill.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Right, we now move on to the 3 or 4 items we've got for information and comment. And the first of those items is Steph on the where we are on the DSG for this year.
And I should be sharing my screen again, so you should all see the paper.
Yeah, thank you.
So the monitoring report that we sent this time is the position based on the period 10, which was the end of January. So this position shows. So we start off by looking at how the budgets have changed since last time. The only update we've had to the allocation since the last report at period 8 is for the academy recruitment and the high needs recruitment and the converting schools, basically. The forecast position then has showed a worsening position for the high needs block since period 8, which is the main point of the report, actually. But it does show the forecast position overall of a £19.4 million overspend on the DSG allocation. That is 3.48% overspend to our DFE threshold. And say the main value there is the 20.8 on the high needs block. That takes our reserves position to a forecasted closing position of an overspend of 35.5 million at the end of this year. There's a bit of detail about how we're looking at Warwickshire's financial resilience there and what we're doing to try and mitigate that and what funds we're having to hold and put aside. Section 4 then details the variances over the different blocks. So schools block is a very minor underspend, which is mainly due to, say, demand on DBS checks, union reps, and small items like that. And the high needs block obviously was the 20.8 million. I say there's numerous overspends here. I say, and the big ones are around, I say, mainstream top-ups, special school top-ups, independent school places, and special resource provision and post-16 provision. I say these are being offset by some little underspends on alternative provision and the specialist teaching service and flexible learning. I say throughout our meetings this year we've talked about what we're doing in terms of the Centre Inclusion Change Programme and the DBV and everything else to try and mitigate these overspends going forward. So 4.4 just gives a brief overview of how the unit costs and the average costs have changed and the FTEs have changed between periods. So you can see kind of the scale of what we're working with and how numbers are going up, not just in terms of units, but also in terms of costs. So the early years block is currently showing an underspend of £1.3 million. I say this is largely due to the additional grants we've had this year with the supplementary grants and funding. We'll be doing a bit more detail once the year's closed, because the early years block is quite hard to predict at this point when the DFE do a very late adjustment in July for the actual census data. And the Central School Services block is forecasting 117k overspend, which was the planned overspend that we had at the beginning of the year. So that one's actually going exactly to how we predicted at the beginning of the year, no change. Are there any questions on any of that?
Alison Ramsey, please.
Apologies, that was up from last time.
Okay, all right. Mary Ann
apologies.
Burrows then, please.
Hi. Yeah, just on the early years underspend. I know that early years is all over the place at the moment with them changing everything. But if that continues to be an underspend, what will happen to that?
I'm guessing my assumption would be, as last time, we'd come back to Schools Forum and the Early Years Working Group to discuss how we might want to spend that underspend and what actions we might want to take.
Okay.
I say we haven't got any plans at the moment, but say last time that happened, we went to Early Years Working Group and Schools Forum, and there was the plan to create the grants that we've given out over the last few years in terms of early years to spend some of that money. But we would probably look to do something similar, I imagine.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions or comments, please?
Can I just add a
Brian.
point to that, Phil? Yeah,
I mean, you can, Brian.
I understand, Mary, point you're getting at, where we obviously with this big increase this year of the early years amounts and the provision under twos and over twos, and then we've got another transition in September this year, and then we've got another transition in April 25 with more provision. So, you know, at the moment we just want to see how things fall at the moment, because we don't know what the take-up will be. So that's the reason why we're not really starting anything too early on proposals of what to do with that underspend.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I think that's the best thing to do. Yeah.
We don't want to over commit or over put too much into ongoing stuff, and suddenly it falls through. You know, our take up goes massively up, and we haven't got enough money then.
Shortfall. Yeah. So, no, I completely understand that.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions, please? All right, thank you. Right, update on academisation. Very short report, I think. Dalbia.
Hi, Phil, thank you. Since the last update in September last year, there's only one school who converted to academic status. It's an early primary school who joined the Store Federation beginning of this year. And there are 8 more schools planning to convert to academic status. I will bring another report in September if there's any changes or any other converters go to academic status by that date. Thank you, Phil.
Dalby, just correct what I think you heard. They've joined the Inspire Trust.
All right, okay. On our paperwork, they were saying, okay, so I will contact the team. They got to correct their paperwork then. Thank you.
They've joined the Inspire Trust because they are closely linked with Stocking Ford in that they've got the same executive head.
Oh, thank you.
And I have to declare an interest in that I've been co-opted onto that governing body as well. I obviously didn't step back quickly enough.
Thank you, Phil.
All right, thanks for that. Okay, item 9 is forward plan. Dalby, again, please.
Next meeting is on 20th of June, as Schools Forum decided they want to have it on Teams. So it'll be on Microsoft Teams, and there were 2 items for decision and some items for comments and information. The item for decisions are dedelegation and disapplication consultation timetable, which we will ask Schools Forum to approve the timetable for those consultations. Then in 26th of September, we will bring the results of the consultation of dedelegation to Schools Forum to approve. And also, I would like to stress to Schools Forum members, if they want anything adding to the agenda, they can always contact Schools Funding email inbox and send any details or papers to that email address so we can add them to the agenda. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dalby. And I will just emphasise what you just said. We do have a fairly standard agenda that we run through, but it doesn't have to be just the officers who determine the contents of this agenda. If any members have something they want to talk about relating to schools finance, then if we send that through, then if it meets our criteria for discussion, then we're very happy to put it on that agenda. Okay.
Thank you.
Right, and item 11 is Chair's business, which I don't have any, unless someone's going to tell me I do. I think that brings our business for the day to a close. So I'd like to thank you all for your attendance today and for your time, and look forward to seeing you on screen again on the 20th of June. Thank you very much. Panima, I think we're talking for a couple of minutes after this meeting, aren't we? And Ross, could you just stay for a couple of minutes too?
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Dalby, do you mind